Where will the Quinnipiac women's soccer team finish in the MAAC? What midterm grade does volleyball coach Kyle Robinson receive? And who are the top 3 fall sport athletes? Find out this and much more coming up on Bobcat Breakdown. Hello, Quinnipiac, and welcome to another edition of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm Noah Epstein alongside these two gentlemen at the desk, Schreiber and Dacey. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. Daniel Jones is 2-0. That's all I got to say. I'm a happy Giants fan.
New season upon us right now with Daniel Jones.
All right, guys, we're going to start with women's soccer. The team lost 2-0 against Schreiber over the weekend, despite having a season-high 30 shots. Based on how they played, what are the chances in the MAAC this year? Max, let's hear your take.
Well, I think they have a great chance. I think obviously the loss to Schreiber is a little bit of a damper there. They got outshot 30-9, but this is a team that was projected to be second in the MAAC this season, and I'm not as high on them as Michael Dalton was when I was on the desk just a few weeks ago, said they were going to go undefeated in the MAAC. Can't say I agree with that, but I don't think there's any room for panic. I think this is really, they're going to have a really nice season, probably finish around 3 or 4 in the MAAC as opposed to last year when they made the playoffs as the 6th seed, just squeaked into the MAAC playoffs. But I think there's no reason to panic here. They're going to have a pretty good season. I expect them to move forward after this loss.
So I think this is a trick question. What are their chances to win the MAAC? I think it's what are their chances to finish second in the MAAC because Monmouth is just such a good team. I think it's their conference to win, and I don't think there's anyone stopping them. So, and I also think it's too early to tell. You know, only 2 games in. So, I mean, it's tough to tell. I mean, you have a freshman and goalie, and she's still getting her feet wet with MAAC play, Megan Phillips. Like I said, you're playing for second place with Monmouth in the conference right now. They're a very good team.
All right, guys. This team finished out last year without a win in 7 games, but before that had an unbeaten streak of 6. Chris, will consistency be a problem this year?
Well, I wasn't sure about this one, so I enlisted the help of Roberto Casillas, the beat reporter here at Q30, and he said, yeah, he's a very smart guy, very, very, very talented great soccer mind. He said that he thought that Quinnipiac played their best soccer against Schreiber so far this season, and they still ended up losing. So he thinks consistency will be a problem. I think, and so I would have to agree with him. We just said he's a great soccer mind, but I think these next 2 games, the 2 games against Marist and Monmouth, which we'll talk about a little bit later, will be a big test to see how this team will compete and how they'll manage the highs and lows of the season because these are 2 good teams. It's going to be one on the road, one at home. So it'd be interesting to see, especially with a freshman goalie, like we just said with Megan Phillips, how they're going to manage these next 2 games, and we'll kind of get a picture. We're going to get a picture of what their consistency will be like for the rest of the season, in my opinion.
I don't really see consistency as a problem. I think this is a really good team, as I mentioned before. And against Schreiber, things just didn't go their way, but they played exactly how they should. They outshot Schreiber 30-9, and sometimes things just don't go your way in sports. Things don't go your way in life. But if they stick to that game plan and they just keep firing at the net, eventually they're going to see that soccer ball in the back of the net. So as long as they just follow that game plan for the rest of the season, I think that they will be successful.
So you're going to disagree with Roberto on this one? After you just said he was a great soccer mind, you listen to him?
Look, Roberto is a very, very, very smart soccer mind, but
So you're disagreeing with him, even though he's a very, very smart soccer mind?
I might have to disagree with him, but he's a really nice guy. He's also a great softball guy too.
I don't know how he's going to feel about that.
The soccer team will play Marist and Monmouth this week. Max, what will be the results of these 2 games?
Well, I think they're going to split. I know this is a really tough task for Quinnipiac, but last year, Marist finished 7-2-1, and then Monmouth obviously won the MAAC at 9-1. So I think they split. They got to go to Marist. So if they do win at Marist, I could see them coming back here to play Monmouth, kind of on that high, and then they play Monmouth and they kind of get smacked here at home. Or if they do lose to Marist, then they come back here. They're angry. They're ready to go. They got a chip on their shoulder. They'll come out here in front of a really energetic Quinnipiac nation and get the win. So I think either way it's going to be 1-1 for Quinnipiac, which would be a really good confidence booster moving forward.
I got to agree with you on here. The Marist is also struggling this year. They're 3-6-1, 0-1-1 in the MAAC. They tied Iona, lost to Monmouth. As we said, Monmouth is the clear favorite to win this conference. So I think this team is going to have a little bit of response in the game against Marist. So they're going to come home with a win back to Hamden. But then they're going to have Monmouth coming into Hamden. That's no easy task. Monmouth has won the past 2 MAAC championships, so it'll be a tough loss right there for the Bobcats.
Agreed.
Now we'll move on to field hockey. The team fell to Columbia 2-1, bringing their record to 3-6. Does the record actually represent the team? Chris, we'll start with you.
I would say it's a fair representation. Obviously, they are 3-6. The teams they did beat were Sacred Heart, Vermont, and Georgetown. And those are teams that they're expected to beat. There's especially Georgetown. Georgetown is a Big East opponent, but Georgetown has finished in the bottom of the Big East last year. So and just kind of like Quinnipiac, that's a game they're expected to win. So. Yeah, I know they've had some trouble. They've played some good teams. They played UConn, which is probably one of the best, if not the best team in the country. But I would say this is a fair representation of their team right now. They had that tough trip to Cali. But yeah, I would say 3-6 is a fair representation of the field hockey team at this moment.
Yeah, I agree. 3-6. If they're 4-5, it doesn't really matter. They had a really tough West Coast trip. They had to go out and play Stanford, which was the 21st ranked team in the nation, and they did play UConn, the number 4 team in the nation. And men's basketball, and you think of Duke, or football, you think of Alabama. Field hockey, it's UConn. They're the gold standard for collegiate field hockey, and they played really well. They did lose 5-0. They had 2 shots on goal, which was the same that Michigan State had against UConn. And Michigan State at that time was a nationally ranked team. So they played really well, and things have just not gone their way, especially playing these really tough teams. But moving forward in Big East play, I think they have the preparation, and they're going to go, and they have a really good opportunity to make their first ever Big East playoff.
The team will face Liberty on October 4th. Max, how will they do against one of the better teams in the Big East?
Everything says I think they're going to upset them, but I have to be realistic, and I think it's going to be a really tough task. Look, I said they did play really well against UConn, but they're going up against the number 3 team in the nation right now in Liberty, and that's a really tough test. And last year they played in Virginia against Liberty. They lost 8-1. But 2 years ago in Hamden, they did win here on their home soil. However, at that year, Liberty was not a nationally ranked team. So I think that they can play well. Maybe being at home, they'll kind of come out with a chip on their shoulder, really brutally losing last year. But I still just don't see them coming away with the W in this game.
Interesting that you just said that you think the field hockey team is going to do better going forward, and then you just say, oh, no, not against Liberty.
Those are the 2 best teams in the conference.
But we'll go on. You're contradicting yourself left and right here. But I have to agree, Liberty is on a tear right now. They beat both their Big East opponents by a score of 9-0, and they're hungry because they were runners-up last year in the Big East, and they want revenge on UConn, and obviously they're having a great season. They've only lost to Wake Forest, and Wake Forest is another ranked opponent, or number 18 at the time, so Liberty, they're out for blood this year.
All right, guys, good debate, but it is time for our first break. We'll look at men's soccer players, how volleyball has done so far, and of course, our final roars, coming up next.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. The Quinnipiac men's soccer team took on number 18 New Hampshire and lost 3-1. Max, what are your takeaways from the loss?
They just didn't shoot the ball enough. I mean, they got outshot 29-2. I understand that they're going up against the number 18 team in the nation, but when you only shoot twice in one game, you can't expect to score. It's just, they have to change their game plan moving forward, and if they take the game against New Hampshire as like a learning point and move forward, then I think that they'll be in good hands. But if they keep following that same recipe, not shooting the ball enough, they're not going to go anywhere this season.
I will say this: they did score, and they were tied, or they were they were tied until the last 10 minutes until New Hampshire scored those 2 goals to go ahead 3-1. So it was a close game, but history tells us that these two teams play close games. I did the research in their history. 2004, Quinnipiac won 1-0. 2005, New Hampshire won 2-0. And 2017 and 2018, it was a 1-0 win for New Hampshire. And then this year, it was a 3-1 win for New Hampshire again. These teams play close games, and New Hampshire plays close games against other teams in the MAAC. Marist went to New Hampshire, and they only beat Marist by a score of 2-1 in double overtime. So I don't know what we can take away is a great. It's a great performance, if you want to say, for a close game for a ranked opponent. But these teams do historically played close games, so take that for what it's worth. I will say Jared Mazzola with 7 saves. It could have been a lot worse than what it was, a 3-1 score. So we have to look at that. And Whalen was not playing. So those are my takeaways. Close games have been in the history, or have been they've played close games in the past and against other MAAC teams. So we'll take that for what it's worth.
The team has 2 standout players in forward Eamon Whalen and goalkeeper Jared Mazzola. But if you only had one, who would you rather? Chris, we'll start with you.
You got to go with Eamon Whalen. He's your difference. Whoa, okay, all right. He's your difference maker on the field. He wasn't playing against New Hampshire. Who knows what would happen if he was playing against New Hampshire? Maybe they will get the more shots, like you said. But I'd say this. Mazzola, he's great. He's obviously done a lot for this team, but you have a backup in Christomos Jakovidis, who has game experience. He has starter experience, he has playoff experience, he has championship game experience. So if worse comes to worse and Mazzola does go down, you do have an option behind him that will play, who has big game experience, who you will trust in net. Behind Whalen, you really don't have anyone. You saw that with New Hampshire. I mean, they struggled to get offense. They had 2 shots. So why not be Whalen? Why isn't Mazzola? Please tell me that.
Because you've seen Mazzola, just because the backup goalie has experience doesn't mean that he's Jared Mazzola. We've seen Jared Mazzola perform at the highest level in the MAAC semifinals.
We've seen Jakovidis perform at the highest level.
Did he save a penalty kick in one of the highest moments?
Did they win that game? They didn't win the championship game. Neither did Jakovidis. They were both in the championship game against Ryder.
What wins championships?
They haven't won a championship. Yes, I understand that, but you have 2 good goalies that are 2 good options.
But if you have a good goalie, that's half of the battle. And goals will come, and especially with Eamon Whalen, they will get goals.
Exactly, so that's what you need, Eamon Whalen.
But if you don't have a goaltender and you're losing games 7-5, as long as you have solid goaltending, I think that's half of the battle, and you're going to win games. The offense will perform. Now, if they're only shooting 2 goals a game, that's a different story. That's an argument that was previously done.
Who's going to score for you if you don't have Whalen in there? You just said you literally just said they had 2 shots and you need more from them.
Thomas of goals, doesn't he have just amount of goals, just as many goals as Eamon Whalen?
Whalen's going to get you that offense.
Whalen's not even leading the team in points. Thomas of goals is. Well, that's true. That is true.
But when he is in there, you cannot tell me that he's not the difference maker.
I understand, but as long as you have good goaltending.
You just said you agree with me. I said you have 2 great goaltenders on this team. But you only have one Eamon Whalen.
I wouldn't say that there's 2 great. I think you have Jared Mazzola can be great.
Okay.
We've seen him be great at the highest level.
But we've also seen Jakovidis be great at the highest level.
Was he playing in that semifinal game?
He did play in a semifinal game. He played in a championship game. What are we talking about here? It's Eamon Whalen. He is your whole entire offense. He is the guy who you can go out and you can count on him getting your chances at net. More than 2 shots that we saw against New Hampshire. You just said that you need to get more offense. Well, Whalen is your answer for that.
Guess we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Okay, guys, now we'll go from the pitch to the court. Volleyball head coach Kyle Robinson has been with the team for 12 games, and it's about midway through the season for the team. So, Max, what grade would you give Robinson for his midterm?
Well, Dacey's going to agree with this one too, but I give him a D, and I understand you're 0-3 in the MAAC right now. That's not good enough. You're brought in here with experience. You had, you come in here, you're expected to change expectations, and so far, I mean, I don't care. If 0-3 in the MAAC is unacceptable, I understand they haven't played a home game yet, but this is still just a continuation from last year. When you bring in a new head coach, expectations change, and so far they haven't lived up to those expectations. Now there's still another half of the season left to be played, but I don't see it. I mean, they should at least be at 1-2, something better than 0-3 in the MAAC. But 4-8 overall, that's not good enough in my opinion, especially when you bring in a new head coach. That's supposed to ignite the team, and they failed to do that so far.
Rome wasn't built in a day, man. And I'll say this, D is 1 letter grade from failing. This team won one of their tournaments this year. They beat Seton Hall. Seton Hall's a Big East team. That's a big win from them. They swept Seton Hall. And oh my goodness, they lost I understand that. I gave them a B-, so I understand they lost 6 in a row. That's why I went down a little bit. But they lost to Fairfield in one of those losses. They haven't had a home match this year. They've been traveling all over the country. And they go into Maryland. They get swept in Maryland, but they're playing good teams down there. I mean, Fairfield is the MAAC is the best team in the MAAC when it comes to volleyball. I mean, really can't expect to do much there at their court. But D is very harsh for a team that has a new head coach. There is an adjustment period. I don't care. I know he's supposed to bring in new energy, but there is an adjustment period from some of these players playing with one coach for 3 years and having a new coach come on. It's difficult. There is an adjustment period. Rome wasn't built in one day, so I say B- just because they won a tournament. They've had some big games. They've won a big game. They've swept Seton Hall. D is very harsh, very harsh.
Well, there's still room for improvement. I mean, definitely. You got 12 more games, but
you basically almost failed them.
I mean, I didn't fail them though. I gave them a D.
Almost did.
Almost is the key word in that sentence.
Almost.
Coming up next, we'll look at the best athletes from fall sports and give you our final roars. Stick with us.
There are amazing things to discover in the forest.
Toothless, time to go! What you picking up on, bud?
It's a whole hidden world of wonders. And the perfect place to spend time with family. What better place to let your imagination soar? Experience nature and create a memory you can share. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest or park near you.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Welcome back once again to Bobcat Breakdown. Guys, we've had some standout performances this fall so far. Dacey, give me your top 3 athletes from this season.
All right, so I'll just go from 3 to 1, I guess. We're going to do that?
Whatever
Sure.
you want.
All right, number
Starting
3 is Kelsey Goldring of the women's soccer team. Number 2 is Hedda Bierman-Ratchen. And then number 1 is Eamon Whalen. So I'll say this. I say the 2 soccer players on this list, they're key to their team's offense. And then I had to put some defense on here. I got to live, like you said before, defense wins championships. For this field hockey team, I feel like when I'm watching Sports Pause each week, I'm seeing a field hockey highlight. Hedda Bierman-Rothschild is always in that highlight, making highlight reel saves. Like you can see right here on the screen right now. She is carrying her team on the defensive end. She's the she's the captain of the defense right now. And she's keeping her team in close in these games where maybe they really shouldn't be close. Making great saves against these great UConn teams. We'll see how she does against Liberty this weekend. So I think she's number 2. But Eamon Whalen is that difference maker on the men's soccer team, like we went into before. He is a guy who's going to get you more than 2 shots a game right there. He's going to lead the offense, and he's going to be huge going into MAAC play for this team to have any success. And then, like I said, Kelsey Goldring, she also runs very good on the offense, runs very key to the offensive success on the women's team. What do you got for your top 3?
So we'll start off with Thomas Vakula, 6 points, leads the men's soccer team. Understand, as we mentioned before, Eamon Whalen has been hurt, but he's kind of slid in to that spot that is a vacancy that was left by Rashawn Dowley, who's in the MLS right now scoring goals for Cincinnati. He's done a great job, really has exceeded all expectations, I think, so far as a freshman for this men's soccer team. And then we're going to go to the women's soccer team. Kelsey Goldring, she really set the tone right. Overtime winner against Bryant, 6th in MAAC, is tied for 6th in the MAAC in points, and she's 10th in goals in the MAAC. So really kind of setting the foundation, as you just mentioned, I think, for this team, and really moving forward, they're going to rely heavily on her, especially in the midst of MAAC play. And then Megan Phillips, the freshman goalkeeper, 5 shutouts so far. She's 3rd in the MAAC in goals against average, top 10 in saves and save percentage in the MAAC. And I think as a freshman, that's just such a confidence booster moving forward. When you have those stats as a freshman, the next 3 years are only going to be better for her.
All right, it's time for everyone's favorite time of the night, final roars. Max, let's hear you roar.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. The MLB postseason is here. Football season is in full swing. The NHL season starts this week, and the NBA is just around the corner. However, there's also a lot of excitement in Quinnipiac Athletics. MAAC play is starting for both men's and women's soccer. Volleyball is at the midpoint of the season. Field hockey is in the race for their first ever Big East playoff spot, and winter sports is just about to get started. So enjoy this while you can, because in the cold days of February and March, when the sports world is at a halt, you'll remember what once was in autumn, and you'll wish it was this time of year again.
As the weather starts to get colder, winter sports are getting closer and closer, and this year, the buzz around Quinnipiac winter sports is higher than ever. Let's start with the women's basketball team who's looking to win its 4th straight MAAC championship as they enter the season on a 56-game win streak in MAAC play. The men's basketball team is entering its 3rd year of the Baker-Dunleavy area with high hopes. With Rich Kelly back with his mate Jacob Rigoni, the Bobcats are sure to go and make some noise in the MAAC. Now let's go to the ice. The women's ice hockey team, Avi Ives, is back in net for her senior season, looking out to close her career as a Bobcat on a high note after a 6th place finish in the ECAC last year. And finally, the men's ice hockey team, the Bobcats, made a return to the NCAA tournament last year that earned them the number 8 spot in the preseason USCHO.com poll. Winter sports start officially Saturday with women's ice hockey. Get ready, Bobcats fans. You won't want to miss any of the action at the People's United Center this winter.
It's October, which means only one thing. Time for the MLB playoffs. Playoffs in baseball have me thinking about baseball here at Quinnipiac. The team had a much improved season in 2019, going 30-29 overall and going 17-7 in the MAAC conference. It was their first winning season since 2015 and just their 5th winning season since 2000. The season ended with the Bobcats winning the MAAC championship to go to the NCAA tournament. QU then beat the number 10 team in the country, East Carolina, in the regional round before losing to Campbell. The win over East Carolina was Quinnipiac's first ever NCAA tourney win, and last year was their first season with 30 wins. With many of the players from last year returning and Coach John Delaney running the show, Quinnipiac baseball fans have a lot to look forward to in 2020. Guys, that is all the time we have for you right now. Thank you to all the producers and crew behind the scenes. Make sure to check out all of our content at Q30TV.com and check out our Twitter at Q30Sports. For Chris, Dacey, and Max Schreiber, I'm Noah Epstein. See you next Tuesday at 9:30.